I'd say that 80% of Knock at the Cabin was really engaging and I really enjoyed it, but ultimately it was the film that I didn't want. It wasn't the film that I was looking for. It wasn't the narrative I'd hoped for. And I need to give spoilers to explain what I mean by that. So in a moment I'll give a spoiler warning. I will say it's one of Shyamalan's weakest. It's very thought-provoking, but in terms of being entertaining, I mean, yeah, 80% of it was good, but I felt really let down by the last maybe 15 minutes, give or take. It wasn't what I wanted. And while I think it's an interesting enough narrative, when you watch a Shyamalan film, you have certain expectations. Is that fair? Probably not, no. But I think anybody watching it is going into it expecting a Shyamalan film. And what we get is something a little different, and I wasn't set up for that. So I don't know, maybe that's not fair. I'm prepared to admit that I should be able to watch this film without certain expectations. And that's, part of the problem of directors getting a reputation for something that is very specific. But I'll say no more about that. I'll go into detail with a spoiler warning in a moment. But the premise is very simple. Two fathers and a daughter are staying in this cabin, and these strangers turn up at their door. And I have to say, Dave Bautista was brilliant. Really thoroughly enjoyed his character, his performance. Everybody's performance was good, but in particular, I thought Leonard was just so captivating. And these strangers arrive and say, you have to kill one of the family members to save all of humanity. And if you don't, then everybody in the world will die. But yeah, you three will live, but nobody else will. And it's a story about what would you sacrifice to save the world. And there is also something that I think was a really good decision is that you're not allowed to kill yourself. So one family member, say Eric or Andrew, couldn't kill themselves. They had to kill the other person. We also have Wen, their daughter. She is just a wonderful character. I think she added a really great energy to this. She's played by Kristen Cui or Cui. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. But I don't know what it must have felt like for her to film this because it is very intense. But I feel like definitely she brought a very different energy to it than had there not been a child in it. And I think it might have actually been darker if there wasn't a child in. And that might have been more confusing because actually the people who are doing the four people who are at the cabin are meant to be nice people. They're doing this because they've had visions of what will happen if one of these three people are not killed by their family members, which sounds ludicrous. But then on TV, we start to see things happening in various places in the world, unexplained tragedies or freak weather. And there's one bit in particular, I won't say exactly what happens, but it's what we see on TV after the bathroom scene. And it genuinely made me feel sick. Like, just imagining what that must feel like. So it is quite intense. I wouldn't say it's scary, but there are moments of uncertainty. In fact, the whole thing is one giant film of uncertainty. And Eric and Andrew have very opposing thoughts about this. One of them is 100% not believing that this is real. How could this possibly be real? The other one is kind of swaying between maybe this is real, maybe they should make a sacrifice. And well, I won't say too much more about what happens, but time is running out, put it that way. We have great performances from Jonathan Groff and Ben Aldridge as Eric and Andrew. We also have Nikki Amuka-Bird as Sabrina, Abby Quinn as Adriane, and Rupert Grint as Redmond. And I guess I'll go with my spoilers, my spoiler thoughts from now. I will say though, before I give spoilers, I think the pacing is very good. I read a couple of reviews online after I finished watching it, and some people are saying it's quite slow. Actually, I liked the pacing. I thought it worked quite well. So that for me wasn't a problem. But the last 20% of it or so kind of was. So absolute spoilers from now. very big spoilers, as I'm going to explain what happens at the end. And for me, because it's a Shyamalan film, I was waiting for the twist. Where's the Shyamalan twist? And again, is that fair? It probably isn't fair for me to say, well, it's not a good film because there wasn't a big twist in it. Because, you know, Shyamalan, if he wants to create this story, he should absolutely be allowed to do that. But when you make a name for yourself as basically being the master of amazing twists, my all-time favourite horror film, just to make it clear that I love Shyamalan's work, my all-time favourite horror film is The Visit, because of the Shyamalan twist. So I was waiting and waiting and waiting, and it never arrived. And to me, what happened in the last 15 minutes or so was obvious. And I knew it was going to happen. And I thought it was, yeah, I mean, I wasn't 100% sure how we'd get there, but to me, I'm still kind of trying to not say what happens, as I hate giving spoilers, even though I know I've given a spoiler warning. But the point is, I predicted the last 15-20 minutes. I may not have known exactly what it would look like, but to me that outcome was what we were going towards the entire time. So there was no twist, there was no big reveal, there was nothing really exciting, nothing really thrilling or scary or intense. It was just kind of, oh, alright, so somebody did something for other people, would you do the same thing? And yeah, it is thought-provoking. But as I said, when I'm watching a Shyamalan film, when I'm watching any film that markets itself as this intense psychological nightmare, I want to feel that. And I didn't. Maybe in parts of the film I did, but ultimately I want to be left feeling that way. I want to feel scarred, violated, terrified. And at the end, I just thought that just felt pointless. Because it was all for nothing. Because apart from, you know, the four people and one of the fathers, I mean, obviously there were things that happened in the world where there were probably, you know, people dying and things from the planes falling and things, but at the same time, it's like, well, they could have just done that at the beginning and I wouldn't have felt any different. So I am very disappointed, very, very disappointed that I was left feeling bored. And it was so predictable. And even if I didn't know Shyamalan was good at twists, I would have still felt disappointed. Because, again, it was marketed as this intense psychological thrill. And it ended up being predictable and bland. So it isn't great. And if you are still listening to me, I don't recommend it. Because I've just spoiled it for you. And I don't think the journey is worth the destination. However, if you weren't listening to me, I would say give it a watch and form your own opinion and see how you find the journey. But honestly, sitting through it, there are a lot of films where the journey is great but the destination's rubbish, but it's worth it. But the journey just wasn't good enough for me to feel disappointed in the ending but satisfied with the journey. I don't want to say I regret watching it, because I love Shyamalan's work. I will watch any of their films. But with this one, maybe it's not fair to have expected something more blood-curdling or gripping or terrifying. Maybe I should be happy with just something that's thought-provoking. But again, it wasn't marketed as that. It was marketed as something much darker and more intense. So I don't think Knock at the Cabin delivered what it promised.